Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pisapia. The NFL draft is behind us, which means the future is in front of us. And the NFL draft being done allows us to now look at the board in a fresh way of what those NFL futures look like in terms of the teams, in terms of some player awards. And to help me break it all down, of course, is my boy, the Undertaker, Andrew Anderson. Andrew Erickson is back, ready to go. He was studying abroad not that long ago, and now he's brought all of that culture here to the program. Erickson, I know you had your bachelor party. You've been kind of running wild these last few weeks. This is an important time for you. You better make some extra money to pay for that wedding that's coming up.
Yeah, thank God I was able to hit on like the Michael Penix to the Atlanta Falcons at insane odds, because this is basically my track record with the NFL draft. It's basically been 2 years ago. I hit on the Jahmyr Gibbs to the Detroit Lions this past year. With Michael Penix to the Falcons, and it saved my bacon both times. So I'm excited to talk about the NFL futures, though.
You are the all or nothing of the NFL draft wagering. I love it. If you're looking for the long shots, please follow Erickson on Betting Pros. You've absolutely crushed that. Not last year, 2 years in a row now. It's been so fun. Now, the little tiny bets, we can have some conversations about that. But the big ones, it's all Erickson right here. And I absolutely love it. So be like Erickson, use the Betting Pros tools, sync your sports books today. Again, it's free to do that. And of course, use the tools to start betting smarter, not harder around the Betting Pros places, because we're going to take some of these odds we're finding from the best houses, the best odds over on Betting Pros, and talk about them today. And we're going to start here with our favorite division odds and win totals. So again, we've seen now what these rosters are more going to look like. We've seen the free agency come and go. Now the NFL draft has come and gone. Yes, there will be injuries and changes, but there's always value at the beginning of the board in the NFL season. And this is a time where I love to make some wagers. This is where I made my Justin Jefferson AP Player of the Year wager on the show here a couple years ago. This is where we've had some big draft capital go into some big players. We made some good decisions on them in terms of win totals for certain teams. So I want to start with one here. My favorite division odds on the board right now are the Colts at plus 350. I think the AFC South is open for business. I'm a huge fan of Shane Steichen. I think he is one of the best offensive minds in the game. I think it was astounding what he was able to do without Richardson last year with Gardner Minshew. They got Adonai Mitchell, who is not a perfect wide receiver, but I think the role that they have him for is perfect. He's that guy that's going to stretch the field, give another dynamic to this offense that we know with a healthy Jonathan Taylor is going to be really good. So Erickson, the Colts to me jump out right away. And I think that you have the same feeling I do, that they are a really good wager at more than 3-1 right now on the board.
Yeah, I think that this was when I was looking at the division odds on the Betting Pros website. Basically, I'm looking for, because I love the long shots. Like, who could I actually see winning their division without catastrophic injuries, like hitting all the other teams? And for me, I agree with you. It's the Colts playing in the AFC South. Yes, the Houston Texans are everybody's favorite, but now they're facing the toughest schedule in that division. So they're going to be tested now. Like last year, they were facing a worse team schedule. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. So the Texans are now the hunted, right? Last year they were everyone's favorite story, exceeding above expectations. How do they now play with expectations? Oh, now you guys have to win the division. So the Colts, finishing still underneath the Jaguars, have longer odds than the Jaguars. I think that the Titans are still a little bit away. So I agree with you with the Colts. Again, they won 9 games last year in Shane Steichen's first year as the head coach after losing their starting quarterback, who looked amazing in the 4 games that he did play in. So I think that offensively, they were there last year with Steichen, 10th in points per game scored, and they smashed their preseason win total. It was at 6.5 wins. They won 9 games, and Anthony Richardson played 4. He didn't even play 4 complete games. So I really like this Colts one here. They improved. They drafted Leitu Latu, to kind of solve that edge. The only really big roster hole I see is at cornerback. And I know that Ballard has come out and said they have confidence in some of their younger cornerbacks, so we'll see if they can step up. But even if their defense goes from, they were 28th in points allowed last year, if they can go to an average defense, I think they can make some noise for sure and win this division.
The deficit at corner could come up, though, against the Texans of all teams, too. So that's going to be really interesting. Now that Diggs is there, you already have to do with Nico Collins. You have to deal with Tank Dell. Hopefully he's healthy enough to come back and play at the best of his abilities this year in 2024. But that'll be interesting to see. Those are going to be some marquee matchups. But even if they split with them, I'm telling you right now, I think the Colts are very dangerous for that division. All right, let's get to another team here that you are high on when it comes to division odds right now, that you think there's a good value on the board, and maybe that value might change as the months continue to get closer and closer to training camp opening.
Well, every year it's funny because we always see a team finish in last place in their division, and then the next year they finish in first. And it's crazy to that team this year is going to be the Bengals. Like, they finished in last place last year because of the Joe Burrow injury. They had an awful schedule. They had one of the toughest schedules in the NFL, and they play in the AFC North, where the Browns are winning games they probably shouldn't be winning. The Steelers are winning games they shouldn't be winning. And that is to the benefit of the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals. They're like, fine, Steelers, Browns win all these games that don't really matter and make it easier for us to get back into contention. And I think that them looking at their schedule this year, they have the 6th easiest schedule overall. And that's compared to the 32nd ranked schedule that they faced last year. So this isn't just projecting the wins and losses from each of the teams they face. This is projecting the forecasted win totals of their opponents. So yet we don't know exactly when they're playing everybody, but we know who they are playing. And despite playing in the AFC North, which is one of the more competitive divisions in the NFL, the Bengals have a really easy schedule. So they're getting Joe Burrow back healthy. They still have T. Higgins on the roster. Like, they didn't trade him. So I think that they're all in on this year. And conversely with the Ravens had it last year. Like, last year was to be on the Ravens, and they didn't come through. They did not deliver in the AFC Championship game. They fell up just short against the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't think their roster is as good as it was last year. They lost a lot of pieces. They still have question marks at tackle, and all the Bengals did was address all their needs. They got 2 right tackles after they lost Jonah Williams. They drafted 2 defensive tackles. They added Sheldon Rankins to replace one of their guys that they lost in free agency. So I think they plugged up all their holes, and most importantly, they have Joe Burrow and they have Jamar Chase. And they have no running back that they need to give the ball to. So if that means more pass attempts for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I think that just means this offense is going to cook. And I think the defense can improve after just kind of getting hurt by the injuries last year.
Well, look, they did bring in Zach Moss. Zach Moss is, coming off a good season, I think a surprising one for all of us, for sure. But I agree wholeheartedly with you. To me, again, we are in lockstep. We came here today with our own ideas, and it turned out a lot of them were the same, which means you should be paying attention to them, because that means we're onto something here. You made a great point about every year there's a team that goes from last to first again. Who better than the Bengals with Joe Burrow healthy? Now, you got to protect him. Obviously, that goes a long way. But even if T. Higgins gets traded, they did also make a splash there, wide receiver with Jermaine Burton, too, who is a hell of a player. So that gives you a little bit more of a cushion. If there is an injury to Jamar Chase again, or if there is an injury to some of these other wide receivers, if T. Higgins should go down, like, somebody else can step into that void here. And I think it's really interesting to look at the path of the Bengals, which is very clear. When Joe Burrow is healthy and playing, the Bengals are an elite team in the AFC. When he is not, we know the difference and we see what it is. So I would rather invest and put my money in Joe Burrow being healthy and the Bengals being good than not. And you're getting plus money on it right now. To me, it makes a lot of sense. And I don't know how afraid I am of the Ravens. I'm with you. I think the Ravens last year had a really great opportunity. They let it slip through their fingers. And I think it's going to take its toll on them a little bit. Not to mention, again, I look at this wide receiver core. It's Zay Flowers and everybody else again. Andrews hurt 2 years in a row. It's going to be a very predictable offense. Yes, Derrick Henry's there, and that's going to be a big difference maker. But if we're talking about in these big spots, can you put up points? Can you push the ball downfield? I have questions if the Ravens can do that in those big competitive spots against the Bengals in those games. Pittsburgh's still a work in progress, and the Browns are the Browns. So at the end of the day, this division's wide open for the Bengals to get back to the top of it. I want to go back to some win totals here, Erickson. As I said before, if I am writing a script here for 2024, I'm thinking about certain teams that I'm investing in. I already talked about investing in the Colts for certain reasons. So if I'm investing in them to win this division, then they're probably going to go over that win total. And right now, that win total on BettingPros is at 8.5. So I'm going the over here. I think they can easily get to 9. They got to 9 last year, as you pointed out. I think this is a double-digit win team potentially right in front of us. And you're getting plus money on the Colts at plus 125. So for me, I look at that Colts team right now is Anthony Richardson is going to be in the award conversation. He is a transformative, transcendent talent in this league. And if the work ethic, which it seems like matches the talent, shows itself in 2024, it's going to be a special season for the Indianapolis Colts. Erickson, when you're starting to look at win totals, who pops out to you?
Yeah, I'm going to the Los Angeles Chargers, who,
Yeah.
we've had so many shows talking about the Chargers, and it's like, hey, you want to lose money? Bet on the Chargers. Like, that's basically it, whether it's like season long, whether it doesn't matter. Like, they're just one of these teams that you don't ever want to bet on. And historically, the last 4 years, they've gone under their win total projection. 4 straight years for the Los Angeles Chargers, just underneath their win total. And I think it's going to be regression to the mean here. You have Jim Harbaugh coming in from Michigan, and he's had success at the NFL level. 70% win rate, which is equivalent to an 18-game season. That's 12.5 wins. So I think under the leadership of Harbaugh, who's establishing a culture, a winning culture, which Los Angeles just has never had since the team basically moved from San Diego, which I still don't know if they had a winning culture there. But I just think that this team has that stigma on them where, oh no, not again. I can't bet on the chart. I can't do it. But
It's been a culture of being soft a little bit too, which I think Harbaugh is going to bring a little bit back of that. Hey, we're going to run the football, be nasty, play a little bit more defense. Like the cap issues were really a difficult thing for them to get under. But to your point, they've had winning teams. I mean, the Tomlinson years, back in the day, there were some really good Charger teams. They just could never get over that hump. But they also were sometimes thought of in those big spots as sometimes a little mentally soft. And I think that that's maybe where Harbaugh can change the culture the most. Do you agree?
yeah, I do. I mean, the Chargers were the kings of losing games that they should have won. Like every
Right.
single time, like blown in the fourth quarter, like never delivering, and they always had talent, right? That was the thing, was they never getting the most out of the talent. And where does that matter the most? The coaching. Like I think that's what you're gonna see with Harbaugh is he's gonna take a roster that, okay, maybe they've been overvalued a little bit when it comes to talent, but there's still a lot of talented guys, and you're starting with the quarterback, Justin Herbert. Like you have the quarterback position fixed. Like you don't have to worry about that. So with Harbaugh, with Justin Herbert, I think this is a team that you can bet the over on in terms of 8.5 wins. You look at Harbaugh, he won at least 8 games in 3 of his 4 seasons as the 49ers head coach, and he won 11 in his first 3 seasons. It wasn't until his last year where they went 8-8. So I'm going to put my belief in Harbaugh in this team and that he's going to get the most out of this roster. And the Chargers are going to regress to the mean and finally hit a win on their, or hit the over on their wins total.
I love this. And I agree with you because if you're talking about teams post-draft, the Chargers had a great draft. Joe Alt coming in to play tackle, right? You have Lad McConkey, who I know Thor's very high on. I'm very high on. I know you like the player too. He's going to be a target hog in this offense. You also brought in on the defensive side a guy that you know very well, Junior Colson, who has leadership ability in the middle of that field as a linebacker. Like you're going to have now all of a sudden more Harbaugh style guys already and solidifying the offensive line, solidifying the middle of that defense a little bit more, starting to bring in quote unquote your type of people. I think it's going to go a long way to maybe holding on to some of those leads that they had that they continue to squander. One other team, Erickson, that I'm high on, who I thought also had a very good draft, and I think I don't necessarily want to talk about them winning divisions yet, but I do want to talk about the win total. And that team right now is, believe it or not, folks, the Arizona Cardinals. It's not very often we leave an NFL draft where we think really highly of the Arizona Cardinals and what they've done. But with a healthy Kyler Murray, all of a sudden you draft Marvin Harrison Jr., you look at what they did bringing in Benson here, you look at some of the defensive pieces as well. The Cardinals made out here, and they have a very low win total. It's only 6.5. Now, there is some juice on it at minus 130. But Erickson, I look at the Cardinals as an opportunity for them to take a step forward. And I know this is an unpopular opinion. Yeah, the 49ers are still going to be great. But if you historically track teams that lose in the Super Bowl, especially heartbreaking losses, as you would equate last year's loss to be, they do not bounce back into Super Bowl form. It does not happen. They rarely get back to the Super Bowl, let alone win. So I'm not saying they're going to catch the 49ers, but I am saying they're going to be a really tougher out, I think, than they've been the last couple of years. What do you think about the Cardinals win total at 6.5?
The Cardinals were one of the more plucky teams that I remember betting on last year. A lot of overs in the desert, and that's because they're a team that likes to fight. And I couldn't believe that this is still 6.5. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. And he was coming up a torn ACL. I remember betting on the Cardinals a lot right when Kyler Murray came back and thinking do these lines know that he is the quarterback? Like they don't have Joshua Dobbs. They don't have Clayton Tune. They don't have insert quarterback here that's going to start this week for the Arizona Cardinals. No, I think that this is buying the dip on a market that's just not considering enough how Kyler Murray, how effective he can be now a full year removed from this torn ACL with a wide receiver one in Marvin Harrison Jr., with a defense that's getting its pieces together under Jonathan Gannon in his second year. Like last year, of course, there was no expectations for them. They didn't have their starting quarterback. It was a brand new head coach. They didn't have a lot of talent. But now they've put in back-to-back drafts that I've liked a lot from Monty Allisonford, formerly of the Titans and the Patriots. He's done a really good job of putting this roster together, collecting talent, collecting draft picks. And I think you're going to see the rewards of all those draft picks the last 2 years. And I think they're going to get more wins. And I think, like you said, if we see a step back from the 49ers potentially, what are we expecting from the Rams, a team that's kind of up and down? Obviously, they made the playoffs, kind of surprised. So, yeah, I think that Arizona and then Seattle, Seattle's another wild card team. I was really high on Seattle last year, but then Geno Smith took a step back. So I think Arizona, you're just looking at Kyler Murray,
and a transition in coach too this year.
Exactly.
So those teams, when they transition to head coaches, and Pete Carroll's been there a long time.
Yeah.
That sometimes takes a while for everything to get on the same page again.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's take a look now ahead to some of the conference numbers here that we like on the early NFL board, and also maybe some Super Bowl odds here. I'm going to go a little chalk here because I do think the Kansas City Chiefs are on a mission. They know what's out there. They want this three-peat. Travis Kelce signed his 2-year extension. They drafted Xavier Worthy. They brought in Hollywood Brown. They have some more reputable talent and a lot of speed now as well on that wide receiver core. Rashee Rice is probably going to face some sort of suspension. My guess is somewhere between 2 and 6 games. It'll land in there. I don't think it's going to be more than 6. We shall see how it works out. But still, I think you're going into things with a little bit more certainty than you went into last year. That wide receiver group was just straight up bad last year for Patrick Mahomes, and he still was able to get blood from a stone, get this team into the playoffs, get him to the Super Bowl, and then a Super Bowl win. To who, of all people? Mecole Hardman catching a ball at the end of the game to win. I mean, that's how crazy the season was for the Chiefs.
Start the year.
Wasn't even on the roster to start. They brought him back. He didn't even catch a ball for them, I feel like. He got like one ball for the entire season.
Imagine telling Jets fans at the beginning of the year, Mecole Hardman's going to catch the Super Bowl winning touchdown.
That's
Jets
not
fans
right.
would have been like, oh my God, this is going to be great. No, it didn't work out that way.
One caveat, it's for the Chiefs. Sorry. Oops. But right now, the Chiefs are still plus 370 on the board, Erickson. That's a lot of money you could win right there. That is a terrific grouping of odds there. You know that the continuity is there, and that to me is so important, Erickson. Continuity in the NFL is huge. Personnel is huge. Coaching is huge. Continuity with both of those things at an elite level is very investable. So I am very comfortable investing in the Chiefs right now, plus 370. Again, it's a little chalky. Doesn't mean it's wrong. And right now it's a really good number. And what's that number going to look like if the Chiefs get off to a 6-0 start? And that's not outside the realm of possibilities. But that's no fun. So let's go to Erickson with something that's a little bit more entertaining in terms of maybe the winner of the AFC.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to ride the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm drinking all of the Tiger Kool-Aid here with the Cincinnati Bengals. So look, just to point out again, the strength of schedule thing, which I think is massive for Cincinnati because they came in last place in the division last year. So they're going from the 32nd ranked schedule they faced last season. Again, amid all the injuries, they also had the toughest schedule of any team. Now they're going to the 6th easiest schedule. And when you look at teams that are projected for at least 10.5 wins, so you're looking at their win totals at 10.5, it's only the Bengals and the Eagles that actually have a top 10 favorable schedule while also are projected to win 10.5 games. So they're just kind of checking off all the boxes of a team that's like, why can't this team make a run? And when you look at the Bengals and the Chiefs, when they've played each other, like these teams have gone toe to toe multiple times. 2 of the last 3 AFC Championship games, the Chiefs have played the Cincinnati Bengals in. Like, I'm not afraid of the Ravens. I'm not afraid of the Buffalo Bills, teams that I think are turning over a lot of pieces. Whereas the Bengals, I feel like they're looking at this year more as like, hey, like this is a window for us. And I think last year it just didn't work out because of the injuries. Like that, they just got hit by the injuries. And I just don't think year over year, usually you get better injury luck. So one year you get hit by injuries really bad, and the next year usually you're a little bit healthier, and vice versa. So I just continue to want to ride the Cincinnati Bengals, and I know that going in, if it's the AFC Championship game between the Bengals and Chiefs, at least I have a chance. Like I got a chance. I don't feel like 100%. Burrow can't beat Mahomes. He can. Like he's done it before.
Of course, again,
so.
He's done it multiple times. You know what I think was most impressive though, despite it was being a disappointing season for the Bengals, Erickson. What I took away was that team did not quit on Zach Taylor. And I think a lot of teams in that situation would quit. You saw them be very hyper competitive with backup quarterback play, with a ton of injuries all over the place. They did not fold up the tents. There was effort every single week out of the Cincinnati Bengals. And to me, that means you're building something special there. That means that these players believe in the system, believe in the coach, believe in the culture. And when you get a healthy Jamar Chase and you get a healthy Joe Burrow back, then all of a sudden things look really, really good for you potentially. And I'm with you. Like, to me, that's the long shot that makes the most sense. I'm going to go, again, maybe a little bit chalk in the NFC. Maybe not. A lot of people love the 49ers. I don't. I already laid out the reason why. And you want to go, historical data matters. And I think Kyle Shanahan's window might have been a little bit tighter now that we look at the rest of the NFC and how they've caught up. And the Lions at plus 600 to me continue to be the most intriguing team on the board. I'm thinking about also places where if the Lions handle their business and somehow end up with home field advantage throughout the playoffs, there's not a lot of places where I still go, oh, that's going to be a really tough place to play. That crowd's going to be insane. The Lions crowd is going to be insane. That building, we know, is going to be nuts. If they are on the precipice of a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game, they are going to be absolutely in a spot with a home field advantage. And to me, that is huge. So I'm looking at the Lions coming out of the NFC. They have the offensive pieces, they have the defensive pieces. Again, I think Dan Campbell unfortunately had to learn some hard lessons last year in the playoffs, where sometimes you just got to be a little bit more conservative and sometimes you got to take control. Stuff you do in the regular season is not stuff you do in the playoffs, and a little bit more discipline. And sometimes hard lessons go a long way. I think Dan Campbell learned that. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. But at plus 600 in the NFC, I think the Lions are a really good investment. When you're looking in the NFC, where do you want to invest for the NFC champion?
Yeah, so I mentioned when I was talking about the Bengals, I like the Eagles because of their easy schedule, top 10 schedule, and they have a win total set at 10.5 wins. So the expectation is this team should win double-digit games, and they have an easy schedule. So again, I'm looking for, okay, what's the easiest path for a team to get the number one seed, right? You mentioned the Lions. I think the Eagles also have a easy path. Like, am I afraid of Dallas and all the additions they've made, signing Ezekiel Elliott? Am I afraid that they're going to take a step forward? No. If anything, I believe more in the Eagles bouncing back. Again, they start out the season hot. They kept winning a lot of games, but we all kind of knew, like, all right, these are kind of like smelly wins. Like, what's going on here? And then they obviously crumbled down the second half of the season, like a lot of us projected, because like this team is overrated. This team's not winning games. They're not winning the right way. So again, but the talent is still there. They have elite playmakers at wide receiver. They have an elite offensive line that they continue to reinvest in every single year. They get ahead of it. Oh, Travis Kelce retired, or excuse me, Jason Kelce retired. They already have the next center like lined up and ready to go. They signed Saquon Barkley to a massive deal because, hey, we want to upgrade at the running back position. We want another playmaker for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was banged up at the end of last year. Defensively, their secondary was getting cooked. What do they do in the draft? They draft 2 of the top 3 cornerbacks in the NFL draft. So I just think that this roster is just loaded up. And the things last year when they tried to replace the offensive defensive coordinators, they lost Shane Steichen, they lost Jonathan Gannon. 2 guys that are both head coaches. Like, that's a lot of coaching that they lost. And who they replaced them with, it didn't work out. So this year, they added 2 new guys, Vic Fangio coming in, and you also have Kellen Moore coming in. So I really think that they're in a better position, both offensively and defensively, with the coaches and staff that are in place now, upgrades from last year, or just changes from last year, because last year just did not work. And they didn't try to go back to it. They're like, no, this isn't going to work. We have too much talent to put the product on the field that they did at the end of the last year. I think anyone that watched the Eagles was like, this team's not giving up. Like, they went into Tampa Bay and just looked like nothing. They're like, this team's going to lose to Baker Mayfield.
Completely.
Like, they had just kind of fallen apart.
Well, they did, and I made money on it, and I was very happy because you could see the toll of the season really came crushing down upon them. And, Erickson, I'm trying to remember, oh, right, the Eagles lost in heartbreaking fashion the Super Bowl the year before, didn't they?
Yes.
And they fell apart, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
This is a real thing. Go back and look over the last 25 years. There's 2 teams that got back in it after losing. One's the Patriots and Tom Brady, so you can throw that one out the window. And the other one is an anomaly. The rest of the time, it does not happen. So I agree with you. The only thing that was holding me up is still there's a little bit youth on that defense. I love getting Quinion Mitchell. I love them getting Cooper DeJean. Like that was a big need, right? Corner was a big need. They addressed it in the draft. I really struggled, and I was going back and forth between the Eagles and the Lions, but I love the Eagles equally at plus 800. If you want to go put a small note on both of them, it makes a lot of sense there because I think one of those 2 are probably going to be where it goes. The only other thing that held me back at the end of the day was that Jalen Hurts had a different offensive coordinator every year of his college and NFL career. At some point, continuity matters. At some point, one voice matters, and I just worry about that a little bit. The Eagles had a really tough schedule. They ran the gauntlet. It took its toll. They fell apart in that game against the 49ers, and frankly, they never recovered after that. So I'm not going to kill the Eagles for a tough schedule and a tough year where there were injuries and other issues with the coaching staff. You mentioned the 2 coordinators they bring in, 2 guys that have a lot of experience in the NFL. You hope things are better. But again, there's still a little bit for me, the Eagles, to prove. But I love the number 800. I think you're right. So that means, obviously, we're looking for a Super Bowl winner among these 4 teams that we're talking about. I'm sticking with the three-peat story. Plus 650 with the Chiefs. I'm going to stay there. Something tells me, though, if indeed Andrew Erickson is the Erickson I know, that he is going to snuff that out with Joe Burrow. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, 14-1 plus 1,400 Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl. I do think, though, that we should point out that we both picked AFC teams because ultimately, when the Super Bowl comes around, the AFC team is probably going to be favored because they're going to have the better quarterback because that's just how these conferences are set up, right? If it's Jared Goff versus Patrick Mahomes, who do you want? Patrick Mahomes. Like, if it's Joe Burrow versus Jalen Hurts, who do you want? Joe Burrow. Like that's just kind of how things are going to shake out. So, yes, the AFC is harder to get to the Super Bowl because of how many good quarterbacks there are. But once you get to the big game, like you want to have the team, excuse me, with the best quarterback.
Agreed. Let's take a look right now at the player futures right now in terms of awards, post-draft. I keep saying after free agency, bringing in Hollywood Brown, not that he's the greatest wide receiver, but Worthy, Brown, those are two guys with a lot of speed that brings that dynamic back to this Chiefs offense that they really were lacking last year. Also, you hope people can catch the football this year. And I think people don't take into account enough that Travis Kelce was basically hurt the entire year and played through the injuries. Now, I'm not saying at this age it's not going to happen again, but if he is healthier, all of a sudden, again, at some point, you're going to have Rashee Rice playing too. The Chiefs are really tough. And if they can withstand Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I'm with Erickson. I think the biggest challenger is not the Buffalo Bills. To me, it's not within their own division for sure. I think it's definitely the Bengals. So if they can get past that hump, I think they're in a good spot here. So Mahomes at plus 650 for the MVP. Again, every year I invested it and every year I make money because every year it goes down and every year I can at least cash out if I don't want to see it all the way through. And that to me is one of those things where Mahomes every year for this award, let's not forget last year's stats were underwhelming. If you go back and look at the career of Mahomes, he's much closer to a guy throwing for 5,000 yards. And when you start throwing for 48 to 5,000 yards and you're winning 12, 13 games, guess what? You're going to be in the MVP conversation. Erickson, once again, I think you're going to stick the Bengals in my face. Is that correct?
Yes. Joe Burrow for me at plus 1,000, 10 to 1 odds for Burrow to be. I just really like the Bengals a lot. I do have a question follow-up for you, though, with the Chiefs and Mahomes. So the odds that you at least looking at the sheet, both plus 650. So the same odds for Mahomes to win MVP, for the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. If you had to tell a person to put their money in one Chiefs investment, whether it be Mahomes or the Super Bowl, which one would you go with?
That's interesting. Well, I think the easier one is Mahomes
I agree.
because I do think they're a team that's built for the regular season and anything can happen in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But what's already so interesting is you can already bet the Super Bowl MVP. So if you want to get better odds on all of these things, just go there because at the end of the day, that's where you can really get the big payoff. If you're writing that script that the Chiefs have their three-peat, make history, they are locked in. History is not lost on them. They get it. And they're starting to embrace the fact that they've gone from, oh, everybody loves the Chiefs to when you win too much, everyone doesn't like you so much. You and I are Patriot fans. We know a thing or two about that. And the Chiefs are learning it the hard way. But the thing is, just like Tom Brady was built for it, and Gronk was built for it, and Edelman was built for it, these guys are built for it. Mahomes doesn't care. He knows exactly what he's chasing. He's chasing history. Now, if you are taking Joe Burrow for MVP, does that mean you're connecting my boy Jamar Chase, who was my offensive player of the year prediction last year, but fell short? Is that your guy this year then, if Burrow's going to have an MVP season?
100%. Joe, we were just a year early. I'm convinced. I was like, I really liked the Bengals a lot last year too. It was like Bengals Super Bowl. And then when Burrow got hurt, I was like, oh no, this is going to be absolutely disastrous. And that actually hurt me a lot in fantasy too. Like I liked a lot of the Bengals guys in fantasy, and that obviously did not work out because of all the injuries. But yeah, I love Jamar Chase, like to be this offensive juggernaut. When you look at what he did last year, basically when we were looking at when Joe Burrow was mostly healthy. So Chase, last 7 games played with Burrow in 2023, Chase was on pace for 143 catches, over 1,800 yards, and 12 touchdowns. And something that I keep connecting the dots back to is looking at the running back position with the Bengals, right? They brought in Zach Moss, they brought in Chase Brown. Okay, like these guys are whatever. They can fill a role, but are they going to be really featured pieces of this offense when it's like when they get near the goal line? Are they just going to be dialing up rushing attempts for Jamar Chase? Is it just going to be fades to Jamar Chase? It's going to be slants to Jamar Chase? Like, it reminds me of what happened in Dallas last year. Tony Pollard struggled mightily in the red zone. So what do? Where's CeeDee Lamb? Let's get CeeDee Lamb the ball. And CeeDee Lamb led the NFL in red zone targets. And he had a monster season. If it wasn't for Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill, like, CeeDee Lamb would have been one of those guys that, hey, this guy's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. So I think without that running back presence there, Joe Mixon is gone. They have no need to feed a running back in the red zone. It's like, where's Jamar Chase? Let's get him another touchdown. So I'm just so all in on this Burrow-Chase connection. I want as many pieces and bets as I can get toward.
It's funny you should mention CeeDee Lamb because that's my selection. Correct me if I'm wrong, Erickson. Did anything about the Cowboys' run game get better year over year?
I mean, you got to ask Jerry Jones what he thinks about Zeke at 28 years old.
Well, I'll have my people call his people, but no. And you also forget that in the first, month of the season, people were losing their mind about CeeDee Lamb because they weren't getting him the football enough, right? You remember that? Look at the rest of the year. Now, let's start writing the script week 1 the right way. CeeDee Lamb right now has that opportunity. Plus 850 right now for AP Offensive Player of the Year. I love this one. All the reasons where Erickson kind of walked in and made my argument for me. So I don't want to belabor the point, but everything Andrew said is correct. He is that offense right now. They're going to throw the football a ton. They're going to be in some high-scoring games. CeeDee Lamb finally, after all these years that we've been waiting, took his game to that next level. Just got to get him the damn football. And they did last year, and to me, that's the only path the Cowboys have to be competitive. Now, NFL draft is done, which means we've got to look at the rookies. So it's ironic. Neither of us have picked Caleb Williams to win Rookie of the Year, which I think is hilarious. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're right. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think this guy's going to step into that alpha role. He is plus 700 on the board right now. Arizona Cardinals got their go-to guy. And as Andrew said earlier in this show, Kyler Murray's a pretty darn good quarterback when you give him a weapon. How far are we removed from DeAndre Hopkins and him having some really good fantasy seasons? So why can't Harrison step right into that role and be good right away? I don't have an answer for it. And if I'm looking at the win totals potentially of where some of the other big-time quarterbacks landed, they might be underwhelming, where if the Cardinals possibly surprise and delight us with, as we went over the win total, 7, 8, who knows, maybe even 9 wins, crazier things have happened. All of a sudden, the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a little bit more getting the attention, I think, of the national media, and that's a good thing for Marvin Harrison Jr., who already has our attention. He's got the Hall of Fame bloodlines. He has got everything you are looking for in a prototypical alpha wide receiver. And the best part about it, Erickson, all the targets are his to be had because there ain't no competition for him. So who do you like for Offensive Player of the Year on the rookie side?
So I had to go with the quarterback position because as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. can be in year 1, and as good as he probably will be, it's for me, I just couldn't wrap my mind around a receiver winning because we've had so many good receivers still lose to quarterbacks. Like last year, Puka Nacua broke all these records. He got 2 votes because CJ Stroud was just that good.
But Stroud was so great, and the team went to the playoffs. So if the Bears or the Commanders make the playoffs, let me know.
Okay. Well, that's another bet that we can make. We got plenty of time. It's only May. But what I will say too to that is, so Kyler Murray's rookie year, right? So he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And in that season, A.J. Brown had over 1,000 receiving yards, and he didn't win the award. And then even before that, Justin Herbert, his rookie year. Justin Jefferson had 1,400 receiving yards. Didn't matter because Justin Herbert plays quarterback. So that's why I'm going in the quarterback direction here. I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels. So same odds as Marvin Harrison Jr. at 7-1. And I just think that the dynamism he brings as a dual threat, the fact that we've seen Cliff Kingsbury work with the rookie quarterback to lead him to an Offensive Rookie of the Year award before with Kyler Murray back in 2019. I think Jaden Daniels does enough and can dazzle as the engine of that offense. Like if the Commanders do anything, it's because of Jaden Daniels. Like we all can make that happen. Whereas I don't want to say that the Bears supporting cast hurts Caleb Williams in essence, but it's like he has much more to work with. So the expectations are that he should be better. But Jaden Daniels, to me, also, I mean, if Caleb Williams wasn't in this draft class, like Jaden Daniels has the tool set to be a number 1 overall pick. And you're getting a discount on him just because he was in the same draft or just so happened to be in the same draft as Caleb Williams. So for me, I like the 7-1 odds. 7-1 was the same odds Anthony Richardson had last year. I felt really good about that. For the first couple weeks of the year, I was like, let's go. And then he got hurt. So, I mean, Daniels, obviously the concern with him, does he stay upright all year? But we've seen even rookie quarterbacks with shortened seasons on a per game basis. If he's really effective, he's rushing for touchdowns left and right. He's throwing dimes down the field to Terry McLaurin. I do like Jaden Daniels at 7-1.
I like the Daniels call because just like Stroud last year, the expectations are so low. So when you surprise and delight, people love that. Like if everyone's like, the Commanders are a work in progress. Oh my goodness, look at the Commanders go. Same thing last year with the Texans. The Texans are a hot mess. They're going to win 3 games. Oh my God, they're a playoff team. When you obliterate expectations like that, you're going to get publicity. The hard part, Caleb Williams is in the spot, as you said, it's kind of got expectations. So if it's not great, if it's just good or even very good, there's opportunity for other guys to win these awards. Let's talk about the Defensive Player of the Year. Who do you have that the early favorite after the draft dust is settled?
So this was one of my favorite ones. I think I wrote up, when bets came out like in February, like right after the Super Bowl, Defensive Player of the Year, and I was like locked in on Aiden Hutchinson, and the odds have gotten longer at 16-1.
Really?
And I can't believe it. Like I never would feel this confident about a defensive player to win, but Aiden Hutchinson checks off all the boxes of a guy that is going to be in the running for this particular award because we know it comes down to sack production, right? We know at the end of the day,
Right.
it's most likely the guy with the most sacks. We saw a guy get 5 pick sixes last year, and he got 1 vote. Like quarterbacks, it's very, very rare that any of them win the award. Like, you have to have like a Revis, Stephon Gilmore season, and usually that only happens when the edge rushers just don't put up a lot of sack numbers. So you're looking for a player that can get double-digit sacks, and what's the easiest way to find that player is to find a defensive player that had a lot of pressures that didn't get a lot of sacks. Again, looking for regression to the mean, and that was Aiden Hutchinson. When you're looking at what he did last year, second in total pressures at 101, but 18th in sack production. He had 8 sacks in his last 5 games played. So we're talking about who's the fans' team this year. It's the Lions. Everybody loves the Lions. Everyone loves a good story. People are going to want the Lions to succeed because they've constantly exceeded expectations every single year. They get closer and closer and closer. And Aiden Hutchinson is the face of that defense. Like, they didn't draft another pass rusher. If they get sacks, it's going to be Hutchinson that's getting the quarterback on the ground. So it would not surprise me at all if he leads the NFL in sacks. And if he's on the best team in the NFC, he's going to win this award.
It's a great stat, too. The pressures conversion into sacks makes a lot of sense there. I like where your head's at there, young man. Plus 1,600 is a hell of a number, too. I can't believe it's that big. I would have thought 10 to 1 at the most.
Well, he's not even in the top 5. Right. He's not even in the top 5.
No, I know. Well, it's the usual suspects. Your Micah Parsons, your Myles Garrett's, and, your TJ Watts. And, TJ's had some problems with his health the last couple of years. We know that. Comeback player of the year is a fun one. I know everyone's going to talk about Cousins. They're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. I want to talk about Anthony Richardson. Because, again, I started the show with the Colts. I want to end with the Colts. There was a tease there where we saw what life looks like when the beast that is Anthony Richardson gets unleashed upon the NFL. And there will be peaks and valleys. There will be learning curves. However, I think it is very exciting to look at what this roster looks like, look at the guy who's running this offense and Shane Steichen, and think that somewhere, somehow, Anthony Richardson is going to be awarded something. Could be Offensive Player of the Year. You could look at that number too. But Comeback Player of the Year plus 700 is a really intriguing one at the same time. So again, we're talking about investing in the Colts. We're talking about the Chiefs. We're talking about the Bengals. Those are kind of our main investments. Some individual players within those teams too, but some really good stuff. But we want to hear from you. Drop your comments below. Subscribe to the BettingPros YouTube channel and ring that bell till it goes ding so you can stay on top of all the latest NFL wagering all season long. Just in a few months, Erickson, we're going to be back to the grind again. I cannot wait to get back to the NFL season, but we do have a few months to go. In the meantime, we're going to have a lot of preview shows and a lot of fun conversations about these future boards, about these win totals, and about how to make you some money early in the NFL. So make sure you hang with us, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, hang out and use the tools. Remember, download the BettingPros app right now, sync your sports books, and start betting smarter, not harder. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.